Flight boss, bitch, you know, for sure. You're not listening to the Mind of an Terry's Moon, Flight boss, the Archangel Uriel, and I'm here to carry out God duties and motherfucker responsibilities. And right now, I want to talk about the birth of spirits, how spirits are born, and basically the origin of Lucifer, and what the spirit of Lucifer actually came from. Love is light. Love is all. Look into this realm of reality. Now, I'm gonna get y'all unindoctrinated. Now, let's follow through with this for the most part. Now, we got a hierarchy to angels. So, what is an angel? First, let's break this down. What is an angel? An angel is a first form, a first shape, a first body. Now, the bodies of angels is what make up God. So, it's like the first cells. Now, an angel is just like calling you a human or calling an animal. Now, the specific name is the spirit or the duty and obligation that's flowing through that shape or form. So, for an example, I call myself the Archangel Uriel. Now, the Archangel is the light, the form, the shape I'm coming in. Now, Uriel is the spirit that's actually utilizing this shape, the frequency vibration, the spirit that's utilizing this shape. So, this shape and form is an angel, but for the most part, the direction that it's going is on the spiritual path of Uriel. You see what I'm saying? So now I'm finna go to an area of life that predates me. Now there's a few things you need to understand before we get into this concept. First things first, because you need to be balanced and unbiased before you think about the concept of God, the overall parameter, the overall expansion and contraction. This is what you need to understand. Everything comes from expansion and contraction, and energy isn't a respecter of a person's. What do I mean by that? Energy doesn't respect you just because of what mind frame you are in. Energy flows where it likes to go, and energy comes from a source. Now, there may be a lot of different shapes and forms and spirits that may come in the form of that source, but they got it from the source. So once you know how to tap in, you know how to decipher and channel and get initiated or unindoctrinated and uninitiated to get to the actual source. But for the most part, the source is the source, and the source will go into the shape and form that will best play out the characteristics that it needs in any realm of reality for that time. So whether you are a person that's receiving this energy in a way that you don't like it, or is in some type of form of a government in your dimension or realm of reality that is something that you don't like, or something that's opposed by you, what you need to understand is it doesn't matter what your mind is in. Energy isn't a respecter of persons. Energy flows where it likes to go. So whoever's taking the shape and form of what's needed for that time, that's what's going to play. Now, the words and the right or wrong and the moralities you tie to it is on you, is on your own lostness. So that's what we need to understand for the most part. Now, so when we're talking about this now, let's talk about the birth of spirits, because the astral realm is first. So just think about everything is the contraction is first. For something to expand from something, I don't care if you religious or you're not religious and you believe in a Big Bang. For something to expand for something, it had to be something that was before even a contraction. It has to expand. So that form of contraction is nothing, no thing, no shape and form. So when you're looking at the first expansion, look at it like this. It's the first imagination or the first dream. So what y'all would call reality or any form of light, whether non-physical to physical, is actually the illusion, the dream, because that's the first quality that's able to change or able to shift or be mutable or to be experienced. You see what I'm saying? So that's what you need to really understand for the most part when we're actually talking about expansion and contraction and the birth of spirits. Now, for the most part, before we get into this, also, when you want to break down what you will call to be heaven, heaven is the ability to sustain into the expansion period process. So that's everything dealing with pushing out, yang, light, flame, living in infinite light and things of that nature. Now, this light ended up being created by the bodies of God. So they become the forms of God, which creates God itself. You see what I'm saying? So this is where we start to get a bunch of different aspects. So now The process period being in the expansion. That's the yang. That's the light, the flame, standing for forever. That's where all the heaven, or sustaining, or what y'all would call never wanting to die and stay in life and things of that. And that's that. Then the contraction period is going to be the lostness, the desertness, the what y'all would think is sleep, but it's really alive, but it's really lostness, desertness. We're like, where's God? And things of that nature. And it's a sense of emptiness. Now, because it's a shift of revitalizing or recharging in way, shape, and form. So this automatically giving you the concept of what you think is awakened conscious is really the dream, and it's really you creating forms to sustain yourself in that dream and experience that dream or creation or imagination a lot longer than just actually being a spirit. Because me as a spirit, I can tell you like this: it was a time where it was like, man, we have this one imagination, and it, like a split second, as soon as we get there, it disappeared before our thin eyes, and we be like, damn, we used to be tired of that. We like, man, what can we do to create some type of shit that we could sustain ourselves in this shit for a long period of time? But that's another video on my lower level of angel, since I'm an archangel. When we want to get to, we're going to get to what predates me, which is the first forms, the first cells, or whatever you want to or the first star, and whatever you want to call it. And the first star got actually from the first expansion. Now look at it, the first expansion, as the first dream or imagination. Now there was like 7, some say 12, but let's just keep it simple right now. So before we get into names and terms like Beelzebub and things of that nature, no, these are just actual principles that you need to understand right now. And this is what the actual spirits is. And the spirits that was taking these forms. And once these spirits got put out, they started taking these forms and start having a life of their own in these forms. Now let's break it down. Look at it like this. Now the first imagination, the first dream, remember, it's just one. It's a being. So it had its first imagination. But this what happened, right? The first expansion. Look at that. That's like God. So that's the imagination and dream. So then you had the first expansion. Now the first expansion happened. It got a certain feeling and emotion from it. Like the first imagination might have been of a tree or whatever this was imagination was, right? It gave off impressions. So let's say 7 impressions. It gave off a loving one, because it loved and appreciated what just happened. Boom, that was the first one. It brought in a one of wisdom and knowledge. It was able to gain some type of wisdom from what was experienced. It had one of doubt. Doubting that this imagination would be seen or expressed again or imagined again. It had a form of hate. It didn't like that imagination. And then it wanted to switch up real fast. It had a concept of jealousy. You know what I'm saying? One perception of that imagination being more prolonged than the other. Then it had the intellect. And then it had the structure. So you see what I'm saying? With these expansion, these was the first expansion and contractions. So with the first imagination, right? That was the first set of ideas about that imagination. The first set of ideas about that imagination. So these first set of ideas, these first concepts, took lives of their own. So it's like 7: love, wisdom, structure, doubt, hate, jealousy, intellect. You see what I'm saying? So look at that. It's like those was the first ideas about that first imagination. So it was 7 ideas about that first imagination, that first expansion, and things of that nature. So now we're going to start to get into favoritism, and we're going to start to get into other things. Now look, this expansion came from a truly place of internal, of its own self. Now for the most part, this is what you need to understand. Now when we talk about the mind and the brain, everything in the physical realm is like that, but it is not that. So you are structured and formulated in that kind of way. So you are a mini version of that kind of temple, of that kind of hierarchy. So this is why you can kind of conflate the two with you. This is where we even get the concept of as above, so below. Because you are a mini version of that with you, but at the same time, as above, you're in a realm that actually happened first. You see what I'm saying? So this is what you got to understand. Overstand. So Now, once we get into this concept, right? So, say that first imagination. Now, this is before you even get any concept of God or any type of anything. These concepts, which is love, doubt, and all, and wisdom, intellect, they start taking a life of their own. So, once the next expansion happened, right? This is what happens. Here's where you start to get frequency vibrations. And here's where you start to get the rainbow waters, which is the premortal waters and shit like that. And then here's how that all that shit get brought about. But for the most part, this was in this realm, right? And here's how we decipher frequency vibrations, which was more powerful. When the next expansion happened, look at that imagination as a parameter, right? It's like a parameter. It's like it's like a dream. It's like you don't know your limits until you reach that limit. So when you reach a limit, it's like a transformation happen for next time that you can be sustainable to have that limit. So love itself, right? The frequency vibration of love extended the imagination a lot longer than the other six. For an example, wisdom and knowledge only did so much, right? Doubting that this imagination would happen again kind of cut it short. Hate, that concept of it, didn't even like that imagination and wanted to get out of it as soon as possible and switch imaginations. So that correlated to the frequency vibration of not wanting to spend time in that, right? The intellect came about where it learned from that imagination, but it was just learning and putting things together. So it's not correlated to, experience. Structure was seeing the foundation of it and things of that nature and seeing how this imagination is structured. But see, the frequency vibration of love, right? It loved and appreciated that imagination. So all the frequencies and the spirits that was born from that spirit was holding on to, going into, staying there. You see what I'm saying? And then, like I said, you have to remember this. Like the source, the overall energy is not a respecter of persons. Energy goes where it likes to flow. So that was kind of starting to be like the shape and form that the source likes to take. Now that the source, this is where these aspects is what create God. You see what I'm saying? So now these different aspects of the one imagination, of the one overall, is what create the concept of God and things of that nature. Now we about to start getting hierarchy and lords and what's lord than the other. Because now we starting to get the concept that love must be vibrating on a higher frequency because it's able to prolong the expansion period a lot longer than the other ones, like wisdom. Now here's what's happening. Now here's a form of favoritism, and the first star is starting to be created. Because with this expansion and contraction, we're starting to get a bunch of premortal waters, and because these spirits is relating to each other in ways and creating sounds and shit, and that's creating premortal waters and vibrations between, because the imaginations that they're having between their spaces when they're relating to each other and going their opposite directions is creating the frequency vibration on how this space is felt when they was interacting in that space, whether that spirit is there or not, right? And based upon the spirit travel, like now we got love, wisdom, right? That's going to be the kind of essence of the basic ingredients now. So they're creating our ingredients and everything for us in this lower realm. Now for the most part, stay with me. Now here's where favoritism comes, because since love is vibrating on a higher frequency, you think about what love is doing. Love is relating to wisdom, to structure, to doubt, and it's having a hard time to relate to hate or to jealousy, but it's relating to the intellect. So the portion of that one imagination, the frequency vibration of the outlook of love is even applying the other ones to it. So it's almost like the source likes taking this shape and form by default because it was happening. It's being able to make the expansion and contraction bigger. You know what I'm saying? Now here's what's happening. What's happening is by that little interaction, wisdom is giving a lot of attention to love because love is relating. Structure is giving a lot of attention to love because it loves stability in that imagination. Intellect is giving a lot of attention to love because it's learning how to prolong, and it's learning what is the reason why it's being able to expand in its area a lot further than the rest. Doubt is doubtful, but it's learning from love also. So it's being a follower, right? This is where you get the first concepts of followers now. And then now you got hate. Hate never liked that imagination in the first place. And remember, each one I'm naming, they then took lives of their own now. See what I'm saying? So they are extending and creating the outlook of God. So their little surrounding and interaction is creating the little light source that's in the middle. And that light source in the middle is what becomes God, or what is God. But that what truly is God is not in this realm at all. They're creating the shape and form and the physicality of that. You see what I'm saying? Just in a higher dense now. Now, all right, now check it. Now and then you get jealousy, cause now here's jealousy is created. Cause jealousy is like, okay, why is this frequency, aka why is love being able to do that when I should be able to expand the parameter in my way without having to relate to the others? So now you see you got different spirits. Now don't look at these as right or wrong yet. Now when you look at love, now here's what happens, right? By default, hate is given love attention, because hate didn't want to be in that first overall imagination in the first place. And since the expansion, like I said, energy, the source, God, energy has a respecter of persons. It only goes where it likes to be flown. So hate is like that frequency is detaching. So that's not the ingredient it takes for sustaining an imagination. You see what I'm saying? So for the most part, just hate having an example that it can bounce off to be separate, that's giving attention to love, jealousy, intellect, to the point that love was getting so much attention, key word, that paying attention is like light. Now, it's getting to the point that the love light almost looks just as bright as the center light that we're surrounding in the first place. If we're these beings. You see what I'm saying? It's almost like we're paying so much attention to what's love doing because it's expanding this expansion, and we thinking that it's that the source is playing favoritism, which we're creating this outlooks amongst each other as this seraphim or whatever we want to call these beings. Because love got this frequency. It's almost starting to seem like, well, love is actually the actual light of what we can't see, or what we creating, or what we came from as spirits. You see what I'm saying? So it's almost like by default, by us giving all this attention, here's what happens. Love start to like all that attention, and here's where we get the El, the God El. See what I'm saying? And all the spirits that was born under the God El, which is the Elohim. Here's where we get love is life, love is life, love is all. Right? Here's where we get beauty, shape, form. Because remember, structure was following love, because it liked that frequency. Because structure takes time and likes to be stable. So that spirit like, damn, I could fuck with love, because love and appreciate, and it's like love likes sustaining. Basically, likes to expand this experience. Remember, wisdom chilling with this motherfucker. Doubt definitely chilling with this motherfucker. So think about everybody who got their own inner doubts on earth now. You're playing out the many forms of this. This is why you could be born from certain spirits. You could be born from the doubt spirit. You could be born from the wisdom spirit. So everybody on earth playing out certain characteristics. You got people who purely logical, purely with the intellect, people who purely structured, people who purely just push out love on the world, people who just purely push out hate. And these spirits come down in certain alignments, and NATO alignments, based upon the dimension and how many layers and mixtures they got to come down there in order to still play out that energy signature. But these are the original signatures. You see what I'm saying? Of this imagination we live in. The overall dream we live in. The awake dream, which y'all think is wake. It was really just a dream. Now, for the most part, love getting so much attention, they got all this light. Love got lost in that light. So what happens is, love starts saying, well, y'all might as well surround me and follow me. That light became separate from the light that they was originally surrounding. So here's what's happening now. Here's what's happening, right? With this, this is where you get the birth of Lucifer. The Lucifer spirit. Right? Because it's like, look at me. Pay attention to me. So anyone who step in their own godly form, Lucifer will come to them in some way, shape, or form to say, no, you can't be like me. You can't be like the overall. And since Lucifer is a spirit, not an individual soul, it could play throughout multiple characters based upon the lore of the dimensions and the lords and the oversouls and shit like that. But for the most part, that's the birth of Lucifer. So Lucifer originally is love. But Lucifer was the first being to say, I'm God. I'm the light of God. I'm the light barrier. You know what I'm saying? And Lucifer is the first star. The first star. So what y'all think, what y'all think is suns and stars, those is just all different shapes and forms of the representation of the first star and whatever the first star is doing, wherever it's at. You see what I'm saying? So all those kind of stars is going to have that kind of spirit. But you got many different stars. You got feminine stars and all, but all stars that's kind of like this sun kind of star, Lucifer loved to take those kind of bodies and things of that nature. Because it's the first light. It's the first shape and form of the representation of God. And since it knows what God knows because it was birthed from God, it's able to do that in the physical form. So remember, you can even look at these first beings as universes. So you was birthed from out of a lot of these universes, these 7 universes, but a lot of times you get attached to Lucifer's universe, which is the love one. You know what I'm saying? Because that one expands everything a lot faster. But for the most part, now that's where that's where Lucifer came from. Because now all the attention is on Lucifer. So love is like, well, y'all need me. You know what I'm saying? To even know the representation of the overall source. I'm based, whatever my actions is 9 times out of 10 I'm doing the closest what the source was doing. So at the beginning, love was the shape and form that the source was like, hell yeah, I like taking this form. But then remember, they was taking lives of their own. So that form got lost in its own light as a spirit now, as a birth spirit as Lucifer, and got lost in that light to the point that it started getting distasteful. You see what I'm saying? So Lucifer was the first motherfucker to be like God, basically. Was the first motherfucker that was doing shit that God liked. Motherfucker just went too far with it. So motherfucker got lost with that shit and thought it could be God. You see what I'm saying? So what y'all would call God, and God is love, and love is God, that's L, that's Lucifer. All that shit. Now I'm not here to tell you to tie motherfucking good and bad to this shit and things of that nature. It's not for that. It's just to try to get you to understand what's actually going on. And you know, these are just forms that God like to go into. So, you know, love is the highest frequency, and love is Lucifer. Love Lucy. You see what I'm saying? This is also what you need to understand also, for the most part. The follower spirits that birthed a lot of spirits that followed love was wisdom, structure, doubt, intellect. Now, hate and jealousy, right? This is where the jealousy spirit is where and the hate spirit is where like the dragons and shit and all that shit came from, basically. But they're not the same as Lucifer. So just like Satan is not the same as Lucifer. Satan is the hate spirit. That's a whole nother spirit. Then you got the jealousy spirit. That's a whole nother spirit. But they be jealous to whoever got the Lucifer spirit. So whoever got the most love, or the most enlightenment, or the most consciousness and things, or who are ever most awake. You're going to attract a bunch of hate spirits, or you're going to attract a bunch of jealous spirits. You see what I'm saying? But But what utilizing Lucifer and love, you're going to attract a bunch of wisdom spirits, which is wisdom and knowledge. You're going to attract a bunch of structure spirits, which is shit like Saturn and practicality and things of that nature. You're going to attract a bunch of intellect spirits, which is also smarts and wittiness and manipulation and shit like that. And you're going to attract a bunch of doubtful spirits, people who doubt themselves, so they're willing to give their power to love or light or Lucifer or God or what y'all want to call as God, but it ain't the overall source. It's just the shape and form that's coming in that aspect with the same kind of technology. So Yahweh and all that shit, that's all Lucifer and shit. So this is just giving you a basic understanding that God is just the overall source, it's the overall dream, and it's not a respecter of persons. So now, since Lucifer had became separate and wanted to be his own light, and y'all want to go to heaven or hell, whatever y'all call it, which is the same place, right? God come into a person, into the shape and form of a person who realized their own power. You see what I'm saying? And who's able to utilize all the Captain Planet, all stars align and might, and motherfucker become that. You know what I'm saying? So when you align yourself and know thyself, God is able to utilize you as a shape and form to see through all the lights, so you don't be blind and things of that nature. And you can go up against Lucifer, which Lucifer will blind you with love, wisdom, knowledge, structure, intellect. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times God need to see a little bit of hatred in you. God may need to see a little bit of jealousy in you. But God needs you to also be unbiased towards love, be unbiased towards Lucifer, be unbiased towards intellect, be unbiased towards structure, be unbiased towards doubt and wisdom, because those are forms of information that Lucifer is using to blind you. So you probably need some of those weapons a little bit, you know what I'm saying, and get some of them on your side a little bit, so your hate could be in the right area for the most part. And then you can utilize love in the way that God truly wants to be expressed, and God can see that you're not a fool and see that you're not going to utilize this love and utilize that kind of light to get lost in it. You know what I'm saying? So this is a higher spiritual realm. You don't tie this to physicality down here. Whatever I'm saying, do not tie this to nothing that's going on in the physical realm. See what I'm saying? Tie this into internal, inside. For an example, you could be in a circumstance or situation where you want to cuss somebody out because they did something to you, right? So you're getting ready to send a text, but you didn't send the text. You're like, I'm not going to do that. Boom. So you still push some hate out in the world, but it was still backed and supported by the shit that Lucifer be utilizing to fuck with you. It was still backed and supported by love, wisdom, intellect, structure, because you made up your mind. So the elements that you put, when you pushed it out in the world, the elements that's mixed with it, you're able to get that back. You always get what you push out, so you're able to get that back. So somebody might have negative to say something about you, but they may not choose to say it or send it off through Facebook or something like that. So you still pushed out net, but you see what I'm saying? You still utilize. So you gotta fight fire with fire. You know what I'm saying? That's what love is. It's fire. But they'll tell you that hatred is. It's a big loopity-loop mind fuck. I'm telling y'all, it is. It really is. But if you really understand the spiritual concept, you can start getting to it. Now, yeah, like I was saying, so it's this different, it's different overall principle spirits that we can tap into, and they're basically universes. So you live in them. You know what I'm saying? So this is where you get all those concepts of beings born in them. You're born in these beings. You're born in them. So this is why you have beings in you and cells in you, because the overall beings, you're born in them. And you could be birthed from one of those spirits. So a lot of y'all are birthed from the Lucifer spirit. A lot of y'all are birthed from the wisdom spirit. You know what I'm saying? But remind you, people who are born truly from the wisdom spirit, from a outside looking in, that's Archangel Uriel. In some way, shape, or form, you're gonna end up being you got that follower spirit to you. People who are too much in the intellect, you are birthed from one of the spirits that followed Lucifer. People who dive too much into doubt, you're born from the spirit. Your spirit and your whole family astral lineage is born from the overall spirit of doubt, and that spirit is a follower spirit overall. So it's this in your astrological makeup to be a follower in the astral realm. You know, look, okay, the only two ones that didn't follow Lucifer was hate and jealousy. And hate and jealousy will be looked at as negative and evil down here. But you need a form of hate and jealousy in you for the actual God to see, to utilize you. And if you're a person who know how to balance and jump rope between the aspects that Lucifer is using, and you're just not separating yourself with too much jealousy and too much hate, that's unbalanced. You got to have a little form of jealousy and hate, because that's the spirit that God needs to transform. But at the same time, you have to be wise enough, aka learn a little bit from that spirit and all the beings and lesser spirits and stars in that world. A little bit of doubt, a little bit of structure, a little bit of, because the intellect spirit, the structure spirit, the wisdom, and the doubt all followed love. They all followed Lucifer. They followers. They're follower spirits, right? But hate and jealousy wasn't. But they could become two separate also, still on the same opposite scale. It's just, it takes a smart person with hatred. It takes a person who know how to utilize the other spirits. So you could be a shape and form for God, because God ain't no thing, no shape. This is why you get all these aspects of why God ain't stopping Lucifer. The realm God is in is this expansion and contraction. But if y'all choose to become separate and create scenarios and want to become heroes and shit, God is showing you what kind of makeup you need. You need a little bit of hate. Gotta hate something of the world. You gotta have a little bit of jealousy. You know what I'm saying? A little bit of those spirits. And then with those spirits, they're gonna put you and place your spirits and place your spirit into manifesting experiences of learning wisdom, learning intellect, learning forms of structure, learning form of doubt, and then you're gonna start to access love, and then you gotta make sure you don't get lost in that space or light or pleasures, because the travels that you went through, that when you utilize the spirit of hate and jealousy, the experiences and the beings that you start to interact with, that deals with the intellect, spirit, and doubt, and wisdom, and structure, right? It's forms of experiences. When you get to love, it's almost like it give you a gift or something, and that gift is like it blinds you to the point that you forget the path. You forget the war. Like you kind of forgot what you was doing because of all that shit that you went through. That was follower shit, but it led you to what you actually was about to fight. Then you realize whatever you was about to fight was like something you can't even detach from, something that's real beautiful. Then it give you a gift that you always wanted, and you like, damn, is this worth fighting? Then you got to realize, like, that's where God is like, learn that, and then you don't never learn it. You get lost in love, and then you get fixated, stable, and shit like that. And then God like, damn, lost another one. Then God got to take that shit from you and utilize somebody else. You see what I'm saying? They go on and on and on. But the motherfucking person who learned that love, that you're not even here to, you're supposed to be obligated to nothing and attaching yourself to anything, because that's the first part of love. Then can't nothing blind you. Can't nothing too good to be true, or nothing in front, or no shape and form, or none of that love light could blind you. Then at that point, right, you'll really see God. Then you will have powers over all that shit. Then it's like all powers combined. You had an affinity gauntlet. Then at that point, you create your realm of reality. You create what you want at the time you want it. And when you don't want it, you learn when you want it. You have infinite motherfucker God infinality. But at that point, your spirit will wake up. And once your spirit wake up, you can't really take a shape and form, because there won't be no shape and form or light to get lost in. You will be where God at. So it'll be like all over again. You have to do the expansion and contraction and create that all over again. And we've been doing that, and we're just helping God expand and contract. That's all. But for the most part, that was the first realm of reality, the first expansion and contraction that this video was about. Flight boss, bitch, goddamn air.